This is my IMP presentation, Descent to Defiance, Countering Democratic Backsliding. The problem. Democracy is being challenged at the global level as this vital governing process is being unraveled through democratic backsliding. In the Carnegie Council for Ethics, an institution teaching the public how to deal with ethical issues of today, defines democratic backsliding as a regime change toward an individual or select few, making the exercise of political power by the public more arbitrary and repressive. In this process, it restricts the space for public participation on governmental issues, thus leading to a decline in democratic values for these institutions. And this is even occurring in institutionalized democracies like the United States. Specific factors exacerbating this democratic backsliding include the disruption of free and fair elections, corrupt legislation, and injustices faced by minority groups. Miles Glassius, a professor of politics at Duke University, finds that a key factor leading to authoritarian regimes is the disruption or an active disruption of accountability within these elections. And this can currently be seen in Russia. Alexei Navalny, a major Putin opposition leader, has responded to these corrupt elections within Russia by advocating for and organizing electoral reform. He ran against Putin in this for president, but was challenged and met with harsh criticism and faced an attempt on his life through poisoning from the Putin administration. And this tense relationship between Putin and Navalny has his supporters attributing his recent death to the Putin administration. Navalny's poisoning and suspected murder prove how in these authoritarian regimes, dissent is suppressed and these elections are construed to ensure that these officials are never challenged. Of note, the stimulus piece, Confrontation on the Bridge, by Jacob Lawrence, highlights the Selma to Montgomery marches. And these marchers are met with harsh opposition by the state troopers who are depicted by a snarling dog. And this artwork brings to light the fact that in the 1960s, there were many prevalent laws and bills that kept minority groups from having input on governmental issues. And thus, Lawrence highlights this systemic racism because during this period, this democracy was only built on the ideals of a select few, proving that when we have this corrupt legislation, it takes us further and further from democracy, as not everyone's ideas are incorporated into our democracy. Similarly, from the stimulus, Melinda Janko wrote about Eloise Cobell and her role as a Native American activist. Cobell found that the United States government had been mismanaging these Indian trust funds, and it has caused many of these people on the reservations to go without electricity or running water. So Janko interviews James Kennerly, an Indian living on the Blackfeet Reservation. And from his experience, she uncovers that over $6,000 of oil had been taken from his land, and he had only received $89 in return. Janko uses the Blackfeet Reservation's mismanaged funds to prove that even in today's society, there is a plague of injustices towards these Native American communities, and that without individuals willing to stand up and hold the government accountable, democracy will continue to freefall. However, this does bring us to our solution, being political dissent, as Merle Perlman, writing for the Columbia Journalism Review, defines political dissent as a dissatisfaction with or opposition to the policies of a current government governing body. And the expression of dissent may take forms ranging from vocal disagreement to civic disobedience to the use of violence. And these previously mentioned factors can be mitigated using techniques like political dissent. In the face of authoritarian regimes, Navalny, despite his death, still proves the power of political dissent, as his role in Russia cannot be understated, as he caused a wave of forward-thinking Russians to continue on his movement and advocate for democratic principles. As Navalny states, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Likewise, Confrontation on the Bridge and the Selma to Montgomery marches for voting rights illustrate that systemic change ensues activism, as these marchers, in the face of danger, root themselves unwilling to accept this injustice for what it was, and this created a more just government for all these people within our society. So, in response to their disobedience, President Lyndon B. Johnson went on national television to pledge his support for these marchers and to call for a new Voting Rights Act to be passed, thus proving the effects that dissent can have on democracy. Lastly, Eloise Cobell's battle with the government portrays that actively opposing these corrupt practices and seeking accountability can stop the injustice, as Cobell's role as a dissident ushered in a wave of change as she won a $3.4 billion settlement for these reservations. And The root cause of this change was Covell's willingness to take action, thus highlighting that we need more individuals to internalize the courage to utilize political dissent, as these grassroots movements are the backbone of democracy and progress. Ultimately, political dissent combats democratic backsliding through expanding freedoms, upholding justice, and preventing authoritarian rule. Thus, moving forward, we need more individuals to act on their act and speak out when they feel obligated to do so, as is the best way to stop this erosion of democracy. Thank you.
Terrific, Gavin. Great job. I got a couple of questions for you and we'll wrap up. Okay, how did you approach and synthesize the differing perspectives? I mean, anytime you do anything political, there's a wide range of opinions. How did you synthesize those into this presentation?
So I had two main perspectives. One was that democracy is currently free-falling and that we need to do something about that, as Miles Glassius, the professor at Duke, found that authoritarian regimes are suppressing this ability to dissent and causing elections to be corrupted. However, other articles found that with these specific examples, like confrontation on the bridge, we can use dissent to create change. So I merged these two ideas together to create my perspective, which was to utilize political dissent to prevent democratic backsliding.
Nice, really good. Okay, and then as a follow-up to that, what are the implications of your findings to your community? What should your peers, other students, take from this?
So from my presentation, I believe that everyone should understand that when they feel the urge to speak out, they should do so, as it can have profound impacts. And when the masses of people coordinate these ideas together, we can create change within our society, as the governments will be forced to listen to us.
Okay, fantastic.